Trying to lose weight? It's time to try Hers. At forhers.com/4u, you can access affordable, doctor-trusted weight loss treatments tailored just for you. These include oral medication kits or compounded GLP-1 injections. Through Hers, pricing for oral medication kits start at just $69 a month for a 10-month plan when paid in full upfront. No hidden fees, no membership fees. You shouldn't have to go out of your way to feel like yourself. Hers brings expert care straight to you with 100% online access to personalized treatment plans that put your goals first. Reach your weight loss goals with help through Hers. Get started at forhers.com/4u to access affordable, doctor-trusted weight loss plans. That's forhers.com/4u, forhers.com/4u. Paid for by Hims and Hers Health. Weight loss by Hers is not available everywhere. Compounded products are not FDA approved or verified for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Prescription required. Restrictions at forhers.com apply.
The audio commentary. It's a dying art form, but here at One Track Mind, I, your wonky yet affable host Ryan Luis Rodriguez, analyze film through the prism of these embryonic forms of podcasting, one audio commentary at a time. Masterpieces, crapster pieces, live action, animation, cult classics, films literally no one has ever heard of. No track is too small and no track is too big. Join me and my guests from the entertainment world as we keep these features alive every other Tuesday. Hey, who else is going to discuss Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey one week and Citizen Kane the next? Us, that's who. Sure, you have to put up with my voice, but there's a certain give and take in this industry. That's One Track Mind, part of the Someone's Favorite Productions family and available wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Of Mushrooms and Men, a Last of Us podcast here on the Weirding Way Media Network. I am one of your host of the Culture Cast, Chris Stashio, and I'm joined by my good friend. He and I just spent, 10, 12 weeks talking about hot dragons with hot dragon sex. My good friend, one of the hosts of the Game of Bros, a Hot D podcast, Yashar.
Love me that hot D. How you doing, Chris?
There's some D in this, but it's less hot and more disgusting.
To prep for today's session, I have done, about 10 kilos worth of psilocybin.
Yeah, I'm prepared. God.
I live in England now, so I use kilos. I actually have no idea how much that is.
Oh, metric. Yeah. Very cool. So on this episode, we are going to be talking a little bit about the first episode of the first
Wait, a little
season.
bit? What are we talking about the rest of the episode?
Yeah, a lot of it, frankly. But
we're actually just talking about the new sale on Zara, and maybe, we'll throw in some Pedro Pascal.
Right. But we're going to be talking about the first episode of the first season of HBO's latest show, their first show premiering this year, The Last of Us. So the show is based off of a video game of the same name, which is something that I feel like we can't overlook enough, that this is a video game property that is not being butchered somehow. It's 2023, folks. All bets are off. But the show does star one Pedro Pascal, the Mandalorian himself, and Bella Ramsey. They play Joel and Ellie, who, again, if you're familiar with the source material, I don't have to explain this to you. If you're not, more or less like myself, Joel and Ellie are on the road to do something.
It's not Mando and Grogu?
Yeah, right. That's what I was expecting. Bella Ramsey's cute in a Grogu-esque way. And she has a Game of Thrones connection too, which I do appreciate. But not to give too much away, we will be talking spoilers. But at the top here, I have not played The Last of Us all the way through. I may play along with the show because I think the show, I'm sure you might agree, the show is kind of moving obviously through the game, and it's clearly also making it clear to people who have played the game that things from the game are going to be big pieces of the show. I mean, they show the skyscrapers, which is as far as I made it in the first game, and they show that at the end of the episode for this. But before we talk about the show, let's talk a little bit about the Last of Us, the property, because it's been around for almost a decade, 2 games at this point. And I think we're also to the point now with the 2013 game and then the sequel, which came out in 2020. The 2013 game is almost Skyrim levels of remaster, where it's been remastered like 8 million times.
It was remastered for PS4, and then they did a remake for the PS5, and like the PS3 game looks pretty good, and the PS4 version looks good. But apparently it's good. The remaster is good, I have the remake. That is what I had played. I had the PS4 remake, and I may play some of it while we're continuing to watch the show. But that is the extent of my experience with The Last of Us. Is I played the first game, about maybe the first act of the game, not even probably. But I know you have a little bit more experience with the game. So, and I know you're a fan as well. Yeah, I played the first game twice, which is a lot in these days to play a game more than once if it's like a 20-hour game. And then I played the second one once, but that was came out like a year ago. They're both like super brutal experiences. I think the second one's actually a little like gnarlier than the first one as far as emotionally. Obviously, we won't really get into that one, but from what I can tell, if the first episode is any indication, it's following the game like pretty closely, which is fine because the game. One of the things the game was praised for beyond like the gameplay stuff was like that it was pretty well written. Like it was very narrative. And Neil Druckmann, who's actually like the co-creator of the show, he comes from a video game background. He was one of Naughty Dog's like top writers, creators, and he's like in charge of the Uncharted games, which also I know you might say but had a pretty big adaptation earlier this year as well, or last year, I guess now at this point. And
another adaptation that had been like sitting around. Well, the thing is, Uncharted came out in 2007. Last of Us came out almost 7 years after it came out. It came out in 2013. Uncharted is the game that I have a lot more experience with, but they're very similar games in a lot of ways. Like they're built on the same platform, right? Play platform. They're running on the same engine. They do a lot of the same things, but the tone and the expectations are wildly and drastically different. I
mean, Uncharted is definitely much more like almost like action. Like Tomb Raider, Indiana Jones, and then like and Last of Us is very much more like everything feels heavy, right? Like you never have enough, and they're both like very like I think well written stories with great characters and a lot of in-depth kind of really getting that like emotional piece. Last of Us more so than Uncharted, but they're very like disparate things. Like ultimately Uncharted tends to be a bit more optimistic, and The Last of Us, I don't want to say it's more realistic, but it's definitely like grittier and grimier, and it's hard to stick with. But Neil Druckmann is actually directing episodes. He's co-producer on the show, and I mean his fingerprints are all over this. So, and that's good because like he obviously is his baby, and he created something that was already pretty cinematic. So I'm not saying it was easy, but I think as far as an adaptation goes, maybe this is something that, as far as just from a pure writing perspective, was maybe a little less difficult to adapt than a lot of other previous video game properties, which I think tend to maybe focus a little bit less on story and are a bit like more abstract, and you have to sort of make it palatable for a TV viewer. Whereas like this is, if you've played the games, you'd be like, like this is a video game, but I could definitely see something like this being translated on the big screen. And well, and that is the thing that you're completely right about, and that is the other thing that I appreciate about about what they're adapting here. And that's why I mentioned, like, we can't forget that this is a video game thing, because there is a huge thing that we kind of have to unpack here at the top, which is things made based off of video games tend to unequivocally across the board, for the most part, suck. And it's not just suck, but suck fucking hard in a way that, we're talking Blood Rain. We're talking Assassin's Creed movie. We're talking plenty of movies that you and I and so many other people got hyped for, got excited for, because the games that we loved were being turned into movies. Jesus Christ, the Halo TV show? Oh boy. I haven't seen that, but
what is there to see? It's one of those things that's been, they talk about it forever, and then it finally happens and nobody cares, because we still have the games to go back to, and the games are a much deeper, much more personal, much more engaging experience for us. And it was never about the movie. It was about us as gamers interacting. And that is why I completely
Have you ever wanted to dive deeper into the horror movies you love? Beyond the Blood is a horror podcast for fans who want more than just surface level screams. We do deep dives into the movies that shaped us, digging into director commentaries, behind the scenes stories, deleted scenes, and the special features that most people skip. Each episode is a love letter to the genre. We break down how these films were made, the creative risks that paid off or didn't, and the lasting impact they've had on the genre as a whole. From 70s slashers to modern nightmares, we celebrate the craft, chaos, and characters that keep us coming back. If you're the kind of fan who rewatches movies with the commentary on, or you simply grew up in the video store horror aisle, the Beyond the Blood podcast was made for you. New episodes every single week. Subscribe, and let's dig deep. Welcome to the Beyond the Blood podcast.
Agree that The Last of Us is a perfect thing to adapt because it's a movie as it is. You are playing a movie when you're playing the game. It's such a cinematic, I mean, the narrative, sure, but it's such a cinematic experience, the game alone, that it's presented in such a way that it feels like you're playing a movie. Like, of course, it's just turn it into a movie, or a TV show. I mean, obviously a TV show, I think the better way to do this. I mean, that I think just out of the gate, the fact that they were like, let's do a show, not a movie, was the smartest thing they did to begin with, because that shows, in my mind, a commitment to taking this seriously as an adaptation.
And I think it originally was pitched as a movie, but did move to show. And yeah, to your point, like the game is like, the first game is like 15 hours or something like that. And so, you know, the first season is going to be about 10 hours. And obviously it's not like an exact one-to-one, but you can see like it lets it breathe, gives you like time with the characters. And from the things I've read, the key differences aren't so much any of the story beats will be significant with the game. It's just they have a little bit more time to spend with some of the side characters whom we may have not seen as much in the game. You know, they were more of like a means to the end. And so I think it lets the world breathe a little bit and be a bit more realistic. But then it also, there's an interesting question, and it's like, who is this for? And I don't mean that cynically.
No, I'm 100% with you, because I was thinking the same thing as I was watching it.
Yeah, because I mean this in the way of the fans. You know, if you do like basically a one-to-one adaptation, is that really what they want? Like, I think people want like the main things to be like the same. People like that, but then do you want it to be exactly the same? Because then you're like, well, it's just like kind of like a remake. Like it's like a remake of something I've already experienced, probably in a more unadulterated form. And then there's the other people who've like maybe heard of it, because Last of Us is a very big cultural touchstone. Like people haven't necessarily played it, but most people have heard of it. It's obviously one of the most popular PlayStation games of all time, and it's just people like zombies and shit like that. And so like it plays as a piece of IP that could bring in people that have, you know, heard of it, maybe experienced it a little bit like yourself, or it looks like something cool. And I can't help but feel like it's probably, if I had to choose one audience, probably more for them. And that actually allows them not to try to like spice things up in a way so much to like say, oh, there's this whole like different thing because the game is so similar, and saying like, no, it's a good story. Let's just like execute this in a very like competent way. Right. And if it is not super different than just playing the game, like that isn't, is that a negative criticism? I don't know. Like part of me thinks like, actually, if maybe not, it's like adapting a book. Like people want like a, you know, like the accurate book retelling. So maybe it's the same type of thing.
But yet we don't ask the question about the book because the book is not a visual medium, right? It's because video, and that's
visuals.
And I think that realistically, we almost need to forget that it is a visual medium and just understand that it is still a story that can be adapted into the film medium, because it is the visual medium, but you and I see it that way. I feel like people that are not gamers and or into gaming see it as just watching a movie, and they forget the interactive part. And so again, we're focusing on the interactive part and they're forgetting the interactive part, but they want to see real people because, you know, and I think I think that's a completely valid point. I think to your question, I was kind of grappling with that too, watching this, because this is so good. It's so well made that you just sit and wonder to yourself, like, this isn't for me. Because I already liked I already like video games. Again, I didn't play the game because I really wasn't interested in playing a game where I spend the bulk majority of it feeling depressed and heavy every time I have to kill an enemy. That's just not an experience I'm personally interested in. That being said, I'm not opposed to sitting down and playing it, and I very well may, but there are going to be plenty of people like my parents who are not going to play it but would totally watch this show. And I think that's also the audience, is people who are interested in seeing a story like this that would never sit down and watch someone play it or play it themselves. And that's a lot of people. It's a huge amount of people.
Yeah.
Clearly, they made this show. They're doing more research than we are to know that there is an audience for this. It's just like you said, whether or not they're able to successfully execute on it. And I'm going to tell you something. Seeing John Hannah's face in the first 2 seconds of this.
I knew you would.
Oh my God. I was so happy.
We were talking about it last week, and I was like, it's like they fucking built this show for Chris.
I was like, it's fate. And he's there and he's doing the thing that he was essentially doing in A Touch of Cloth, but he's serious here and it works. And but again, it's a scene that almost has to exist for this show to work. Right? Because the show the way it is and the game the way it is doesn't spend a lot of time explaining anything, correct?
Yeah. So I would say like one of the big differences, I don't like all the game, but like there's, since I've played the games, I can talk about a few of the key differences. I would say most of the story beats were identical. Like this is basically the opening act of the game. Like with the daughter and her dying, and that's like very, very crucial in the game. We spend a little bit more time with the daughter, but another thing is you get like it's not like, oh, I don't understand what's going on with the infection, but it's like you get like very high level explanation of it, and you kind of just say, okay, it's not really relevant. The show does give a little bit more time to the exposition, which I think is fine. Like I said, especially for an audience who, while it's probably comprised of a decent portion of gamers, probably most people aren't gamers or haven't played the games. So it's good to give them a little bit of context, especially when you have these like zombie type shows. I think people like that backstory. So
even though it's not necessary, I don't think they need it. But no. I think more or less, and I think you would probably agree, it may even come down to expectation of the audience. I think Western audiences expect a certain level of like things to be explained and not a lot of open. I know that this is a stereotype for American audiences, but I think it's an apt one. American audiences hate open-ended storytelling. Sopranos, a lot of TV shows have open-ended narratives in the way they end, and people I'm still trying to. So speaking of HBO, still trying to
Inception.
still trying to solve the ending. It's like there's nothing to solve. Like you're given exactly what it is, and you can leave it up to interpretation, but solving is different than interpreting. I feel like if they hadn't given us a scene like this where they essentially lay out what is about to happen, but in the way that narratives tend to, where it's like, well, this could happen if we don't keep an eye on it, like, which is obviously just a very cheeky way of the narrative being like, hands off, we're not going to tell you, but we are. I like that because it does just it just kind of, a random talk show in 1968 in this universe has two people who happen to just talk about the way the world ends. I mean, that there's this quote I saw last year, and it was like, on a piece of paper somewhere in the world, someone has written down how the world will end, and they just don't even know it. Like someone's predicted how the world's going to end, and they just happen to be right. But how many other people are predicting how the world's going to end? People do it all the time. Nuclear war and this, that, and something else. And in 1968, two dudes on a talk show just happened to hit on cordyceps. And he doesn't even say it's cordyceps specifically. He just rattles off, it's fungi. And if you're a fan of this and cordyceps are the transmission, the kind of infection point, I guess. So I appreciate that. I get I agree with you. Like the game obviously doesn't need it, but I think this did.
Yeah. And something to consider is this zombie infection is a bit different than like the traditional one where it's like a fungal infection. And so it's visible in how the people transform too. So I think maybe giving that context helps. And like just for context, like cordyceps is essentially, you may have heard of those like ants that are essentially brain controlled by the mushrooms to like bring them food, and it infects them and basically takes over their motor systems. That's what this does, but like on a much wider scale, and it can actually infect humans.
Only because the earth has been heating up.
And it got too warm, and they adapted to the warmth. And because the point, he's like, well, this can't exist in humans because our body temperature is too high. It's like, well, what if the world gets hotter? And I was like, you got a little climate change in there. Nice. That's not in the game.
And I want to point this out, and I think that this is something that is brought to the table by the person whose name we haven't mentioned, but I want to mention him because, Well, obviously he's the showrunner. Craig Mazin, man, holy cow, what a career. I mean, he wrote Rocket Man, the Harlan Williams movie in the 90s, that weird Disney movie where Harlan Williams plays an astronaut. And then he wrote my favorite Scary Movie 3. And then he directed Superhero Movie, which, neither here nor there. But he created
Chernobyl.
He created Chernobyl. And that, I mean, Jesus H. Christ. I don't know if you've seen Chernobyl. I'm assuming you have.
Oh, yeah. I love Chernobyl.
But I'll tell you, I wouldn't have it any other way than the guy who was the creator of Chernobyl working on and creating this show, because they share a very similar DNA.
Definitely like a similar visual style.
Right.
And like this like feeling of failure from up top. I think it permeates it. Chernobyl was a bit more about like the intellectual kind of like, how do these systems not work?
Right.
And then this is a bit more about, okay, everything's broken. Let's look at the people.
Right.
That are
how do the
impacted
systems
by this.
continue to fail even?
Yeah. And I mean, Chernobyl was amazing. And also kind of prescient, because like a lot of those things that were highlighted in the USSR failings became evident in COVID, which happened like a few months after Chernobyl came out. And you saw like how a lot of governments responded. And so I think there's like a sense of realism, even though it's like an unrealistic scenario that Craig Mazin he imbues in his works. And I'm not talking about like superhero movies, in his recent things. And it's very clear here. And I think it works really well to buy you into the situation that these characters find themselves in. Pedro Pascal, you have Gabriel Luna. I'm still waiting on the canceled Ghost Rider show to start.
I think you're gonna be waiting for a while, pal.
Yeah. So
I think he's on this show now, as they would say. He
is. It took me actually a while to click. Like I was like, I know that guy. The guy plays Tommy, who's his brother, Pedro Pascal's brother in the show. And I was like, oh shit, this is fucking Ghost. I'm a big Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. guy, so I'm like, this is Ghost Rider. So it's good to see him getting checks.
Well, and I was about to say, let's just talk about the casting right at the top. How do you feel about casting Pedro Pascal?
I mean, of
It's
course,
like the biggest TV actor right now.
I mean,
is it on the nose? It feels a little on the nose.
He's in everything. I mean,
literally, that's why I'm asking. Like, he is in everything.
It's funny that out of Game of Thrones, he somehow became the biggest star. Not that other people haven't had big careers, but I think he has had the most notable. Like, he's been in Narcos, The Mandalorian. He's in Wonder Woman. He's been in a ton of movies. And he's a great actor. And because Mandalorian requires him to be on set for like 5 minutes a season, because it's just a body double there, I think for a lot of it, he has time to kill and show his face as Joel. He has the look for it, and he has this like quiet intensity which Joel has in the games. I was reading an article about how they said they softened him up in the show as relative to the games, because he's quite like harsh. I mean, not that you saw he's harsh in this, but I think to make it more palatable for people, you need someone who is a bit more relatable to like root for. And he obviously has a good relationship with HBO. So I mean, is it cliche in the sense of he's in everything? Sure, but like, is it a bad casting? No, I think he killed it, and you can even see in some of the things he did before the time jump, there's like this simmering kind of darkness in him. Right.
Troy Baker plays the character, right? And the character model is not based off of Troy Baker, the person, right?
It's kind of similar-ish. I mean, he's like a white guy in the games, and obviously he's like Hispanic now, which it's not really a big like.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't matter.
It's just it's like his race is arbitrary.
I feel like my only concern with casting Pedro Pascal in this role is I'm having a hard time seeing it as anything other than just Pedro Pascal. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think, to your point, Pedro Pascal has he's become more than any of his roles. It's like he is a part of the pop culture quilt work of 2020, of the 2020s in a big way, just being the Mandalorian. Obviously, like you said, all jokes aside about whether or not he's actually doing anything on set or if it's just somebody else in the suit, you walk down the street and you're Pedro Pascal, people are going to go, the Mandalorian. Doesn't matter who's in the suit, right?
Yeah.
I wonder if that's going to be the reaction for something like this. Is going to be, oh, you're Joel in The Last of Us. Because again, the character that he's playing, softening him up, I think works only because they can't have him be the character he is from the video game. Because I think it's so much reliant on how you're playing as that character in the video game.
Yeah, because you're taking ownership of the actions. You're like, oh, this is shitty, but you're like, I'm doing it. And right. I'm sure he's going to do shitty things in the game, and we've already seen him do some shitty things in the show.
But nothing that's unjustifiable. Like, I haven't seen him do anything in the show yet where I'm like, I don't understand why you did that. You know, that
he may have killed that cop. It was unclear if he killed him or just knocked him out.
Which one?
Savagely.
The one at the end?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that guy's dead, dude. I don't know. That guy got punched. That's my point. Like, you couldn't have him go as far as Tony Soprano does in the college episode where you have him choking a guy out. I don't think you could go that far with the Joel character the way that they did it in that show, because you would lose any amount of sympathy that he's going to be getting from the non-video game players, right? Like you said, the people who are watching the show that don't know what he does in the video game, which, again, I know the beats of the story at least. I just don't think many people that the show is being geared towards would get on board with a character going that far. And I wonder how much complexity they're going to bring to it if they've already said we've softened the character a bit.
And I think it's important because, like, there's certain things, like if it follows the game, because some spoilers for the game, he does some things later on that are like pretty hard to, I think, not understand, but say like, oh, that's an okay thing to do. And I think if they're going to follow a similar trajectory for him, you need to like really get the audience like engage with him where we can really understand where he's coming from and not just be like disengage and be like, fuck this guy. So right. I think that's the thing. I think the path they're going to go is probably follows the same story beats, but like maybe we understand him a little better, or like maybe in like a Walter White kind of way where he does terrible things, but we still root for him because we've built that emotional connection because we've seen enough good at one point where it's like hard to just like disassociate the two things.
Well, and to be fair, I mean, we know the world that they're inhabiting is a unforgiving world, and we see that post the man, we just love watching shows with time jumps, apparently, with the post 20-year time jump. But let's talk about everything before the time jump, because you kind of mentioned it is more or less that is the opening of the video game. And I think that the video game's opening for a lot of people, myself included, is I think it's a spectacular way and a really devastating way to open your video game, at least this kind of game. And I think that the show captures it. I think that the show actually more or less just does what the video game did. And they're almost aping that shot from the game in a lot of the shots where you've got the rear, essentially looking out of the rear window and looking through the front windshield, and it keeps kind of alternating. And they do that a lot in the game. And obviously it works in the game, but I think it works really well here because it gives you this just sense of, I don't know, like a sense of just being uncomfortable, right? And a sense of claustrophobia, really.
Well, yeah. And so in the game opens as you playing as Sarah too, which playing the game, you obviously people didn't know what was happening. So like, I think it was more jarring in the same way it is for someone who has no context for Last of Us coming into the show. Fun fact, she's played by Nico Parker, who is Thandiwe Newton's daughter. I thought like her face kind of looked familiar. Did you know that?
Yeah, no, I looked it up after the fact. She has that same quality that her mom does.
Yeah, like her cheeks, like her facial structures, like very striking and similar. And I was like, she looks vaguely familiar, but I couldn't put it. And then I saw it and I was like, oh, it makes sense. Like, because like her face is not identical, but like once it's hard to unsee once you know it.
Right.
But yeah, so the show starts off following the daughter. The difference is we spent a little bit more time with Sarah because you spend like a day with her rather than just like when all the shit goes bad in the game. And it takes place right outside Austin, which is just like the game. I lived in Austin for a while, so I have like a bit of a soft spot for that. And I always found that interesting because while Austin is a major city, it's rarely the core of any type of
this is
thing,
like the thing I think of when I think of things that take place in Austin. I think of the beginning of The Last of Us.
and it's like, unless like it's a Richard Linklater movie, but like he's from Austin, so
right. And Naughty Dog is not from Austin. Like,
no,
I think Troy Baker grew up in like San Antonio. I think that's it. But I don't know if like there's not like seemingly a reason to set it in Austin. I guess Gustavo Santaolla's music maybe works better if it's in the South.
Yeah. Oh, and like we can talk about the music later, but the music in the game is unbelievable. Like it's very like somber, kind of like Americana type of vibes. And the show basically is using the exact same soundtrack, which is perfect. It's like why there's no real. It's like Star Wars in the context of they use the same type of music across the game, shows, movies.
And it's like Gustavo Santaolla doing the music either way. So it's like Michael Giacchino. Like if you have him doing the music for your game, you're not going to hire somebody else to do the music for your show. It's like you have a guy who does the voice for Mario in your game. Why would you hire someone else to do the voice for Mario?
It's me, Chris.
It's me, Chris Pratt. I am playing Mario. This is the voice. Hello. But it works. But it works here because again, like you said, the game already felt like a movie. It's just not. Yeah. It's almost this doesn't feel like a layup, and by the end of the show, it may feel like a kind of a layup. But do you know what I mean? Like this may usher in a whole new age of video game adaptations if this is successful, because Hollywood and the industry will finally look at all of the games that have all these fucking narratives that they're not telling and just going, oh, Dead Space TV show. You know what I mean?
Dead Space needs one like yesterday. Dead Space is so good.
But that's my point. Like it's that same thing where I think now, and my hope is with something like Last of Us is we will see people going, okay, video games are a serious medium, and that should never have been in question. As you and I both know, as people who spent the better part of our teens playing Resident Evil 4, one of the more narratively kind of bizarre video games, but fun that in and of itself should be turned into something. We have known this for the longest time, and I'm hopeful that the bigger world gets on board with it, because we've been saying this for years. We as a generation have been saying like video games are a medium worth looking at in the mainstream. And like, in my opinion, like the first 20 minutes of this show is a good indicator of what you can do when you actually give a shit about the thing you're adapting.
And it's like you're saying about the video games, like I think companies, streamers, whatever, are looking for like IP is king, right?
Right.
But like they're really doing the comic book thing, and I think that's generally successful. But I think if this video game thing works out, we're going to see a lot of that. Like Amazon recently acquired the rights for God of War, and they're going to do it on Prime Video. And I think God of War is like another like action oriented narrative game that has like, especially the last few iterations, have got a lot more serious and writing focused. So I think we're starting to see that. And yeah, I do think the success of this, to your point, was going to drive more and more of those acquisitions and adaptations. Right. Are they all going to be good? Probably not. But if they're more good than not, I think that's a cool thing to happen.
Well, given how many bad things we've had in the, I think, lifetime of adaptations of video games, which, by the way, as you know, ain't that long. I mean, video games haven't been around long enough for us to be able to say like, oh no, we can't look at the history of video game adaptations. Oh, we can. And it's been more or less taking place in our lifetime. So it started with that Super Mario Brothers movie. It's not a surprise in 2023 we're getting another Super Mario Brothers movie. Finally, it finally took all this time to get back here. But yeah, I think we're going to see the way they did with comic books. I think video games in the next 10 to 15 years are really going to be hit hard in the adaptation world. And you know what? I, for one, am kind of thankful because like you said, are they all going to be good? No. But I think something like this sets the tone for what you can do with the medium. And the first 30 minutes of this, even if this isn't based off of a video game, the first 30 minutes of this are a compelling zombie adjacent TV show. More so than fucking Walking Dead ever was.
Yeah, but I will say the early episodes of The Walking Dead had a very similar vibe. And I think that was when Walking Dead was the strongest. And like the first third of this episode actually does kind of echo that, like lived in, like this is society before it all goes to shit. And it was very strong. And I think it could be jarring for some people to see like Sarah die like that in Joel's arms. But we don't really see the Joel-Ellie relationship, which is very core to the games. I mean, that's obviously going to be coming up. But I think,
Hello, this is Chris Haskell from They Live by Film. For those that don't know us, Adam, Zach, and I, we built a podcast over the last 2 years that's a combination of film discussion from 3 very different perspectives, as well as industry interviews with the leaders in boutique Blu-ray and 4K community. We started with Dev Crocodile, but over time we've been lucky enough to speak with Arrow Video, Severin, Mondo Macabro, Vinegar Syndrome, Radiance, Indicator, most of the OCN partner labels. It's been a blast. You can find us wherever you podcast, and also actually recently as part of Someone's Favorite Production Podcast Network. We hope to see you online.
One of the things that I kind of didn't like was they really beat into your head about like him losing Sarah, like they did in the flashback, even though it just happened like 20 minutes prior,
Right.
When he attacks the cop. But that is very, very core to some of the like decisions that Joel makes in the show, in the game, because it's like obviously Ellie is a surrogate for his lost daughter, and it explains why he would do some of the things that he does. So I am interested to see how that relationship plays out. I think the relationship between him and Sarah, Pedro Pascal, Joel and Sarah in the show in just a relatively brief amount of time, like we saw that love and care he had for her, and how she was, a bit independent and talked back, much like Ellie, Bella Ramsey. So that's going to, I think, be the more so than the really nice looking set pieces and brutal zombies, and they look gross, and we haven't really even seen a clicker yet, which is what kind of they turn into. But with the fucking grandma with the mushroom mouth was horrifying. But I think the most thing that's gonna be most core for this is how that relationship dynamic between Joel and Ellie plays out. And I think based on the early parts of the episode, it's going to be done well.
Well, and I think also to your point, because we kind of really haven't even mentioned her other than saying, well, she was in Game of Thrones too.
Yeah.
Bella Ramsey is 19 years old.
Yeah. Well, like Macy Williams was like 9, she's like 30 by the end of Game of Thrones.
I know, but man, like Bella Ramsey, kind of feel bad for her in a way because she looks like a child. She what's funny is she's 19 and somehow she looks too young to be Ellie. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know, like something about her facial features. Like I'm looking forward to seeing them really doing something with her character interesting, because I think Bella Ramsey is a fantastic actress, the worst witch notwithstanding. I wonder, because Pedro Pascal makes sense. Bella Ramsey always just feels like a little bit of a harder sell, and we haven't seen enough of her really to know.
Yeah,
but it's just her addition and her being in this is, I don't know. She has a bigger mountain to climb in my mind of the two actors, of the two leads, right?
Well, she's not as proven, right?
Right. And that's my point. She's been Game of Thrones and The Worst Witch. That's it.
Yeah. And like she was fun in Game of Thrones and cocky and like that, but that's not the same exact character as Ellie is. And for context, Ellie, Naughty Dog never admitted to it, was like, well, not Elliot Page, but at the time Ellen Page, was essentially looked just like Elliot Page. And actually, this was before Elliot made their transition. Like people were saying, well, if they ever do a movie, or like it's just obvious to cast. Obviously, that's not viable today. But just to give context to people that don't know the game, that's who the character kind of looked like, acted like, and so. Yeah, so it was interesting when they cast. We're like, okay, who are they going to cast? Because the obvious person is not available. So I think it seems like HBO has a relationship with her, right? Because like they were the thing, kind of similar to Pedro Pascal. They were the thing that gave her big break. So they probably were like, we have this relationship with this internal talent. She's shown brightly that this is her chance to like really go to the next step. I think if she's successful in the show, we're going to see her in a lot of stuff.
I agree.
And yeah, I mean, she was in it probably like 10 minutes total. Her performance was fine. Like she portrayed the character pretty similarly to the game. Well, but she didn't have a whole lot to do yet other than be kind of spunky. So I'm interested to see where her character goes. We obviously spent a lot more time with Joel and even Sarah in this episode than we did with Ellie.
And I like that the show is making it clear to the audience, because again, I mean, as someone who played the game, I kind of know how the first, act of the episode plays out. Long episode too, hour and a half, moved at a nice clip. Yeah. It was like a feature-length film, essentially.
Yeah.
I like that the show is reinforcing to the audience that it's not just the clickers that are the problem. It's not just the cordyceps infection that's the problem. Because Joel's daughter doesn't die from the infection. She dies from the people. And again, we always joke about, the Walking Dead. The people are the Walking Dead. Like,
it is the same shit.
It is the same shit, but like for whatever reason, this just feels more compelling right now. It feels fresh. It feels new. That a year from now, when we're talking about the end of the show and the next season coming out in a year from then, it might not. It may just feel like another Walking Dead. But here's the thing. This show has what? 2 seasons? 3 seasons?
So they said the first season is going to be the first game, which makes sense based on like what we've seen so far. I think the second game you could maybe split into 2 seasons because of how that, not to get exposed, but the game is kind of split like from 2 very specific perspectives.
Right.
And then there's no third game. I don't know. But like, let's just assume it's just Last of Us 1 and 2 and there's no third one. Yeah, probably like 2 or 3 seasons.
Right. Walking Dead has been going forever. And I think that you would make the case, as I'm sure many people, myself included, who were watching the show when it first came out, this show was good. And then it really takes a turn and then it falls off. Yeah. I don't think we have to worry about that with this show. This show may just not get great after the first half of the first season, or the second season may be a stumbling block compared to the first season. But I don't think we have to worry about this narrative going on forever, which is reassuring as an audience member.
And this first season has a very like specific story that it's going to tell, like with a start and an end. And I think people will like it. And I like that they're not trying to extract as much hours as possible, which you could see. Like I could see a show in which they, spend 5 or 6 episodes or even a whole season going in, between Sarah's death and when Joel meets Ellie. Like I could see that.
Oh, like flashbacking to that day?
Not even flashbacking, but just like the whole season is leading up to like the the whole season is bridging that 20-year gap. I could see that happening. And maybe that's IP they do later on. Like we want to do a prequel series.
I was about to say, like, bro, they've got it. 20 years is a long time, baby.
I'm sure someone's pitched
if you're over at HBO and I'm over at HBO and somebody's going, what can we do with this Last of Us property that'll make us some money? I'm going to make a show in that 20-year gap, because 1 year is a long time. 20 years is even longer.
And I mean, I would watch it too. Like, let me be honest, but I am happy they didn't go that route with this show. At least like they're saying like we have a very like specific story we want to tell, and we're not going to do the typical adaptation thing where we just extract every pound of flesh that we can to make you our like customer for as long as we can. So I like that they're just saying, let's tell a good story made well, and it doesn't have to last forever.
Well, and like anything else, I mean, this show is going to be the crown jewel in their crown that they're making of this franchise. Like you said, 20 years, there could be a show there. But this show is always going to be the show that has the most narrative importance to the world as a whole. Again, knowing where the story ends up going, not to spoil it, this story has larger ramifications for the world. But those other stories, that doesn't mean they're not worth telling. They matter to the world of those people. But I'm with you. I like that this story is being given the time that it clearly is going to need, but also not wasting our time, which is what they would be doing otherwise. And I think we kind of saw some of that with Game of Thrones. It felt like at times they were kind of spinning their wheels a little bit. Like, we don't need to see another pre-time jump thing for you to not give us post-time jump stuff that we want. Like that, they're not trying to do that here. It seems very obvious that like they know where they're going and what they want to do. And the video game is such a good guide, but it doesn't have to be the roadmap.
How many failed birth scenes are we expecting in this season of The Last of Us?
Right. Failed mushroom birth scenes.
Yes. We may get one of those. But yeah, so I guess, how did you feel about the performances in general? I think Joel and Tess probably had the most to do. Tommy's not really in it a lot, but he's obviously a big driving force of why Joel is doing what he's doing. Tommy, Joel's brother, is lost, and Joel wants to go find him. And the difference between this and Walking Dead is there is like a societal construct. Like there's Fedra, which is like the government still exists, but it's a bit, I don't want to say oppressive isn't really the right word, but it's definitely much more restricted in what you can do. You're in these like small enclaves. It's not a great life. It's better than like The Walking Dead. And then there's these rebels called the Fireflies who kind of think like the government's overstepping and people should have more freedom. It's a shitty situation. I don't know what the right answer is, but it is an interesting dynamic. And Joel wants to go get his brother who went on like a supply run or something, and he needs a way to get out because these people really aren't allowed to leave. We do see like the people that tried to leave their encampment were hung. And you see that even the first boy that comes in, he's infected is killed and, burnt, which makes sense in the context of you can't have an infected person come in because they would do that. But you see it is like a harsh existence. It's not easy.
Right. Well, and that's the thing that I appreciate with something like this versus Walking Dead. Walking Dead feels kind of so pastoral at this point with like, oh, and everything broke down and that's it. And there's nothing like really like the zombies are a threat. But like even the cordyceps are a threat here, but society doesn't fall apart completely. Like the cordyceps infection is a big deal. It's a big problem. It's clearly driving the society to be what it is and to adapt in the way that it's adapted. But society still exists. Like people, you see Joel walking the streets at one point of Boston. Yes, it's in the quarantine zone, but you would never see anything like that in Walking Dead. You'd never see groups of people like that doing anything out in the open together.
Well, you would, and then not Joel, and then what's the main guy in Walking Dead?
Rick?
Rick shows up, and then for some reason everyone's dead. And
their
little mini society goes to shit.
Well, and that's what I appreciate about this show, just like the way it's telling the narrative and the narrative that it decided to adapt. It's not just your everyday apocalyptic story where it's just Ellie and Joel walking the wasteland. Like they're going to be going to do something to try and benefit society as a whole, obviously, unbeknownst to them or not. But there is a society still worth saving that they can look around and see is still there, which is not the case in almost any other post-apocalyptic zombie style story.
Like where this show starts is where a lot of like these zombie things would end. Like Joel it's not the best, but it's like a relatively safe place. He can live a life till he's old
and die,
and die. But he's actually leaving that for a reason initially to find his brother. But obviously like his relationship with Ellie will become more important. But yeah, so that's different because he's leaving actually safety in this. It's not perfect. It's, maybe even a little oppressive, but he's leaving a thing that allows him to exist, which usually when we're watching these movies, it's like, oh, we're going, even if it's like a shitty society, that's better than just, hoofing it on your own when like you have like they even say like you have raiders and you have like gangs, like the cordyceps and the infected are a problem, but at least those are predictable. It's the people that have very different incentives that you have to worry about because, do you just kill everyone you come across? Like who's on your side? Who just wants to take from you? These are all questions you have to worry about outside of the quarantine zone.
I would not want to die to the humans in this world. I would rather just die to the cordyceps because then I know I'm dead.
Yeah.
Like you could be turned into because they say slavers and all kinds of stuff. So,
slavers.
Yeah, like that. And that for me, like that, that's the thing about The Walking Dead, like that joke of, oh, The Walking Dead are the people. Then do something with that. Because all it ever is like people who don't want to share their supplies. Like, all right. Like, but there's more complexities to that. And I don't know if the show's going to get into them in this universe, but the fact that there is already kind of like a framework and a structure of this universe, and it's not just disparate groups of people roaming the lands, like that's not what's going on here. People are being put to death by the government in this. So there is some semblance of control going on. And, credit to Neil Druckmann in the creation of the game to inject something like the Fireflies in. But that's the thing that makes this better than something that's maybe a comic book or something similar. Because it's a video game, there's things that you had to do in the game that were introduced as plot points that you had to interact with in the game and do. And because they're now in the show, it increases the complexity of the show in a direction that feels unique and different. And less just people roaming around, fighting zombies and running away from the next zombie thing to the next zombie thing. And we got to find food. And it's like, how many times have we seen this?
And actually, like, speaking of the game, the actress that plays Marlene in the game, Merle Dandridge. And she's the head of the Fireflies, which are kind of this rebel group who, as I mentioned before, like they don't like, I guess, how much power it seems the government has. It's also a bit unclear, like what they want before this, but obviously we find out Ellie is immune to the virus. So what does that mean? The Fireflies want to take her somewhere for something. Like I'm going to try, even though I know where it's going to not because I know it's actually following the game quite closely, not going to go into spoilers, but obviously it's around the fact that Ellie is immune, and what does that mean, and can they leverage that to potentially do something for humanity? Joel just, she's a means to an end for him right now. We'll see if that maintains. My guess is probably not. And but yeah, and the reason Joel even knows Marlene is it's kind of implied that his brother is involved with the Fireflies to some extent. I don't know if he's a true believer or he just does jobs for them, but that is the connection he has to them. And he's an opportunist, as we see. Like, he's willing to get rough, go outside the law. Like, we see him selling drugs to a guard. And yeah, he's doing it to get machinery to help his brother, to get a car to help his brother. But like, Joel will do whatever he thinks he needs to do to get what he wants. And that's key to Joel.
Right.
Is like, he's not necessarily going to just slit your throat right in front of you, but he's also willing to blur the lines of what's good and bad if he thinks what he's doing is justified. And we're getting hints of that.
And I like that they also introduced the character of Tess, because she's a huge part of the story, at least in the first game.
Yeah.
And I like that they don't. I'm glad that it's Anna Torv. Annie Wershing is an actress. She's fantastic in Bosch. She could have played the role just fine, I think. I mean, again, maybe she's busy. I don't have any idea why they cast Anna Torv. Love Anna Torv in Fringe, so I'm always happy to see her in things, especially opposite Pedro Pascal. But, like you said, ultimately, this is really the Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey hour. And I think it's probably going to be more or less the entire show, because the game is.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. You get a lot more tests earlier on in the games, and it seems like we got a lot more we got a lot of tests in this episode. I would say Tess and Joel, like, post time skip, were the two core characters. You kind of get, like, Tess is a badass, and she's like level-headed, and like, people don't want to fuck with her, but she's also like, where Joel is almost like a dog off his leash. She's like, even in times where she's getting the shit beat out of her, like, can maintain her cool and is a bit more calculated and rational. And I think that's why her and Joel work well together. And they have a history. The game kind of has that too, where it's like they maybe had some sort of romantic thing, but it's like not super formal, but really they're partners, like they're work partners, and they do sketchy smuggling shit together, basically. And and that's what they're doing now.
And I think that, ultimately this first episode didn't really have to do anything other than introduce us to the main players. Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey, and again, Anna Torv and Gabriel Luna are there in small doses, but it didn't have to do anything other than introduce us to them and really give us a sense of the world that these characters are inhabiting, and doing a lot of world building. And I think if we look at the first episode primarily as world building and introducing us to the characters, which is realistically all it's being asked to do in this first episode, I think this first episode is really successful. And I think, even if it is a little heavy-handed with, trying to tell a story that you could watch this first episode and theoretically be done, right? This first episode tells a self-contained story. I think the way this episode opens with, obviously this kind of setting up of the cordyceps, to then Joel's intro and his 20 years prior. And then you kind of have it all come back when they get stopped by this, Fedra agent right at the end, and he sees this flashback of his daughter, and that sets him on this path to finally standing up. I feel like they do a pretty decent job in a way that, again, like, I can tell you the best success of this show is that I forget it's based off of a video game. That's when the show is being the most successful, is I forget that this is a video game show. Because ultimately, again, as bad as most video game things have been that we've seen, if I can forget that it's based off of a video game, that's a massive success.
Like, I knew almost exactly how the situation with Sarah was going to play out, because, like I said, it plays very similarly to the game. And I was still like, shit, like, I still felt like nervous and anxious, and even like certain scenes, like from the back of the car, from her perspective, and you follow her and you see the house on fire, and you see the Austin skyline. Like, I've seen all of that, and I was still like, damn, what's going to happen? Like, and even there was like a part of me that's like, is she going to survive this? Or like, how is she going to die? and I still like the dramatic tension was still there. So I'm like, even though I know it's going to happen, I was still completely engaged, and there's something to be said for that.
Well, that again, I think that just speaks to the exact same thing I'm saying. Like, when we forget what this is, be it based off of a video game that I know the story beats of, or a video game that you love, that you've played, that you're invested in the narrative, partially because of how much you love the game, but you can just get engaged like that. That's not easy. And that's crossing two bridges at the same time that most creators and showrunners or directors and screenwriters have a hard time doing just one of those things. Again, we can name all the bad video game things, and there are so few good video game things, to the point where I'm not sure we still really have had any amazing video game things. I think it's just people saying like, well, it's not completely trash. Like the original Mortal Kombat's not completely terrible. It's fun.
I will not stand for the Sonic the Hedgehog slander.
I like Sonic the Hedgehog, but it's the exception that proves the rule, man.
Yeah.
It really is. In a lot of ways, like, it was surprising Sonic was good. Nobody was like, man, that Sonic movie was just as good as the first one. They're like, no, this is a good video game movie. You guys should go see it. I had to convince people to go see Sonic because they were assuming it was just going to be a complete train wreck. Yeah,
the second one, obviously, people liked, but people liked the first one. The first one, actually, people were like, we were not getting into it. The first one, actually, it seemed to have a lot stacked against it. So it was
Sonic teeth and all.
Yeah. But it does seem, and Uncharted critically had mixed reviews, but was commercially quite successful. Right. And
doing the thing that everybody else has done, which is telling an Indiana Jones adventure story.
But I guess my point is, like, the last few years have seen, it does seem like the at least the public sphere has shifted on these video game transitions, where like people are more open and like actually enjoying them.
Well, and it feels like they look at the game, and instead of saying, well, how can we make this the easiest and quickest way so that the people who like it will continue to like it, they're actually caring about putting the effort forward. Like, that would be the thing that I feel like you could say about movies based off of video games, the same thing you could say about video games based off of movies. Nobody is actually putting in effort. They're just assuming that you're going to engage with this product because of the name notoriety alone, be it Mortal Kombat the movie or Iron Man the video game. Like, the expectations of why you're engaging with those products may seem different, but they're eerily similar. You know the IP, and that's why you're engaging. And that used to be, at least in many people's minds who were making this stuff, that was enough. And I'm glad that we seem to be in a time now where that is not only not enough, but that's not even where I'm coming into this as. I just want to make something for the fans of the show, or the game. I want to make something that people who aren't already fans of this will be interested and engaged by. And that is something that I think, like you just said, maybe we're finally in a time and place where that is something people care about with video games. They've cared about it for forever with books, and then comic books. Maybe video games are finally going to get their due in a different medium from the one that they've been in. Not saying we need an Elden Ring movie or a Borderlands movie for that matter, because again, those things are already telling a story, but there are plenty
You're
of
getting a Borderlands movie, just FYI.
I know, with a screenplay by Craig Mazin of all people. So again, I'm not complaining, but I'm also glad that we seem to be in a time where the people that are making these things actually seem to care about the things to begin with, not just people showing up because they know what it is, which is super cynical to say, but that's what it was for the longest time.
I'm also going to be interested to see if after this, because maybe the season sucks. I'm going to go on a limb and say between the early reviews and like what we've seen.
No way.
It's going to be at least like well received. It may not be like the best thing ever, but it's going to be generally well received. People are going to like it.
It's not going to it may not reinvent the wheel, but it doesn't necessarily have to.
But I'm going to see I wonder if that opens more doors for like Neil Druckmann to do like more television movies. And then if that leads to other creatives in the video game space making that transition. And like, I'm specifically thinking of like Hideo Kojima
or Cory Balrog.
Yeah. And he's been, because like these people have been rumored, and sometimes these video game creators are involved in the adaptations and things like that. But like Neil Druckmann actually directing episodes is like quite hands-on. And I don't know how much different directing a game, because using actors versus a movie is, or TV show, but it's obviously not something that's commonly done. So that's just a random quirk that could come out of this that could be interesting to follow.
Well, and again, I'm totally with you. You know, anytime something like this happens where it kind of shakes the tenets of expectation with a genre that everybody feels like they already know what they're going to be getting with video game stuff is terrible and nobody is going to watch it. And why should we care? The fact that something comes out like this and people are like, oh no, this is good and we're all on board and we want to watch the next episode. Yeah, people are going to take notice and it will not, like you said, God of War and everything else. It's not going to take long before we've got Christopher Judge playing Kratos for real. You know what I mean? Like it's not, we're not far away from that anymore. And I think that's promising. Again, I hope that this show lands it. And all the reviews more or less have said it will. It doesn't have to do anything other than tell the story of the first game. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. I mean, it's
a layup. Like that's what I'm saying. Like they don't have to try that hard. They don't have to. If they really didn't want to, they wouldn't have to.
Druckmann's done the work and he's crafted like a really good foundation. Like he already took the risk and said, here's a story that works. And that's really just, you know, can we take that from one medium to another? Change some things, but keep the spirit of it. And I think they will. And I'm looking forward to see more of the Joel Ellie. That's the one thing I leave is like, I want to see more of the Joel Ellie dynamic and what does that look like? And that's going to grow throughout the season. I think that's probably the one thing that the first episode doesn't really give us a lot of feeling for, but it sets the foundation for why Joel would be attracted. And I mean, attracted in the sense of like a paternal way towards a character like Ellie.
Right. I'm completely with you. You know, that is the thing that, you know, we've kind of been mentioning is going to be what drives the success or failure of the show moving forward is how well they play off of one another. And I'm excited. You know, I'm excited to see where the show goes. And I'm excited to see if by the end of the season, I'm just as excited for more video game adaptations as I am now, because watching this, like by the end of it, I was like, this is just an HBO show. I don't even care if this is based off of a video game. And that for me was maybe another thing that Mazin and Druckmann were thinking about when they were writing this is, can we get you invested in this without having video game knowledge or any even investment in that video game? And I think if you're watching this and you don't know The Last of Us, you're watching this fresh and all you know is what you've seen, I think by the end of it, I would be interested to see what's in that skyscraper. What are they going towards? Yeah. And you know what? I, as someone who knows, can't wait. And I'm assuming if you don't know where this is going, you're even more excited. So yeah, HBO's got another success on their hands. What a surprise.
I will say, and for the purpose of this podcast, I'll avoid, I guess, trying to say like, what do I think will happen next? Because at least this season, I feel like I know what's going to happen next.
Right, more or less.
So I will try to keep that stuff off the plate when we talk about it. But like when there's things that haven't happened in the game, I think I can kind of deep dive that a bit more. But I just feel like it may not be that fun for. I assume probably most people that listen to this are, you know, be like a gamer type of crowd, but.
I don't know. I mean, again, like it's a good enough show that necessarily you don't have to be a gamer to enjoy the show. You don't have to be a gamer to enjoy the show.
I meant that probably listen to our podcast. My guess is. I
don't know. I have no idea. Again, you would assume that I would have played the game, but yet I hadn't.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. My point is I will try to avoid going too far, you know, saying like, well, this is what I think happens because
I know what happens. Yeah, you think, huh? You're thinking real hard on that one.
Yeah.
So, the next time we do one of these, we're going to be talking about the second episode of the first season, which is, like you had mentioned, directed by Neil Druckmann, and it is titled Infected. And maybe I get the feeling we might be seeing a clicker in this second episode.
We didn't see the clickers, which is like the full form of the zombie, basically. We kind of saw one hinted at in the wall, but we haven't seen what they look like. So that'll be interesting to see how that all plays. Actually, one last thing we didn't talk about, the opening credits was kind of like Game of Thrones.
Oh, it was so good.
Mushrooms.
It was so good.
It's so good. It was so good. And then the music was just like the theme of the game. So going back to your point about the music, I did really like the opening credits. And I mean, they fucking cracked the opening credits. Like just have shit pop out of the wall and it kind of looks like pulsating and weird. And is it a city? Is it a much? And we're just going to do for all of our shows. And you know what? You sons of bitches, you got me.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, this doesn't feel like a half-court shot. This feels like a layup. Like, you're adapting The Last of Us. wow. Like,
and you know what? There's something to be said about executing. Like,
right,
everything has to be
agreed.
fucking like reinventing and like just execute well. And HBO executes. And
sometimes I want to go to a restaurant that's fusion, and sometimes I just want to eat a really good hamburger or hot dog. And there is something to be said for, like you said, executing. Just, I've got a great thing and I just have to do it again just as well as someone else did. Like,
and it's win-win. I think for people that don't know The Last of Us, it is giving them that like, wow, I'm having a fucking 30-star Michelin meal or whatever. And then for like people like me, they're just executing. And so like, which to the point I was like, who is this for? Like, maybe it's for everyone. And we get different things, but it's all good.
Agreed. I'm excited to see where this goes. HBO, yeah, man, they hit it out of the park last year with Hot D. I mean, I think we were both surprised, and
yeah,
I'm not surprised this is good. I'm really not.
No.
I'm just surprised at how good of a job it's doing already, taking a step. Maybe not like a complete step to the right, but like a 45-degree step from the video game, and kind of doing its own thing and really planting its own flag, as opposed to just saying, look at the flag over here. We're on its flagpole. It's like, we're going to do our own thing, even if it is what they've already done. So yeah. Until then, you can find Yashar and I over at weirdingwaymedia.com, which is the link tree, which is the homepage for all of the shows over at the Weirding Way Media Network, including this one. We did a Game of Thrones show last year, if you want to listen to our thoughts on that. And yeah, we're doing this for the foreseeable future for the next, 10 weeks, 13 weeks, whatever it is, however long this show is. So you can always find that along with this show and everything else over at weirdingwaymedia.com. And yeah, we'll be back to talk about the second episode next week.
Share, like the podcast, share the podcast with your friends of Mushrooms and Men, Last of Us podcast. So
there you go.
Support. We appreciate it.
And we'll catch you on the next episode.